Okay, let's see. I need backup. That feels pretty good. Maybe a little bit this way so the chairs aren't in there. Hi everybody, welcome back. My name is Catherine Hubert. I am the owner here at Chez Genèse. We took a week off because I spent some time with my family, extended family, actually out in California, and just it came up kind of unexpectedly. The trip did, and I just didn't get a chance to get my thoughts together and to film. So took a week off. Thanks for your patience. It's good to be back. If you don't know me or my business, we are Chez Genèse. We are the place of new beginnings. We are a French-inspired cafe in Greensboro, North Carolina, and we are on a mission to change the way that our world both views and employs people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We practice that model here at our little cafe, and this is our space online where we talk more about who we are, what we do, why we do it. That's my speedy introduction. We're going to get right into non-tipping part 2. We talked a couple weeks ago about why we're a non-tipping restaurant and some of the pros and benefits that we've found to that model. But like all things in life, there's nothing right that's just totally positive. It's usually complex and layered, and this is no exception. So there are also some things that I have found to be challenging or to be obstacles with this model, and today we're going to talk about a few of those. And if you missed the video from a couple weeks ago, maybe go back and watch that first so that you understand all of the reasons why we're non-tipping, so that you don't get to the end of this video and be like, so why do you do this? But we've been open for almost 5 years now. We have been non-tipping since the very beginning. There was a brief period of time during COVID where we did accept tips, and that was an extra way to kind of boost some income for our staff because hours had been reduced. A lot of our staff was staying home. We're a restaurant, so you kind of have to be here in order for it to operate. We were doing a lot of curbside. We were operating with a smaller team. Back when COVID first hit and we didn't know that much about it, there was a lot of concern, and that may still be the case, honestly, I'm not sure, that individuals with disabilities were more at risk. And since 50% of our staff are people with disabilities, we wanted to be really sensitive to that and make sure that we were limiting contact here. All that to say, we kind of reopened up tipping just for the short season. Short? No, it's not that short. That we were curbside only. But in terms of our actual operations, when it's like our standard in-person dining, we're non-tipping. The reasons why that can be challenging at times is that restaurants have pretty small profit margins. If your restaurant is doing well, or at least what they taught me in school, is that you want about 30% of your income to go towards food cost, like your food and beverage cost, about 30% to go to your labor, 30% to go to overhead costs, and then you hope for a 10% profit margin. So that's kind of like 10%, you're doing well. 10% is really not that big of a profit margin, and because we're non-tipping, our labor costs are higher than this like goal or standard of 30%. It works out in some other areas. Some of our overhead costs are a little bit less. We also have retained a lot of our staff over the years, and so our turnover is really pretty low, and that also alleviates a lot of financial stress from a business. So we make up for it some in other areas, but it's challenging to get all of the numbers to work out. And especially being like a startup business and then a COVID business, we've actually had very few years and months where business has not been full of panic or stress. So like the past 2 years, things have been a little bit more steady and have felt like we have some rhythms and routines, but it took until this year before I actually had like a previous year's worth of sales or income to look at and have it be helpful. So as you're trying to build a business and plan, and then you're trying to get all the numbers to work, figuring out that labor piece and component has definitely been challenging, and has at times meant that the profit margin is very small, which impacts the business and impacts me. So we kind of juggle, and I've gotten to a place where I'm like, we're always gonna have more than 30% labor because of the way that we pay our staff. As a result, how do we price our food and our menus to where that actually makes sense and we're covering all of our costs, but not charging an exorbitant amount for people to come eat breakfast food? I think there's still some wiggle room in our menu pricing. Sometimes people look at the price and they're like, ooh, that's $15 for that. And you're like, yes, however, it's $15. Like, you're not tipping another 20% on top of $15 when you leave. And a lot of times when I go out to eat now, I'm paying more at other establishments by the time I order something and then tip than what I would pay for something here. But I think that the way our brains work, it somehow that feels better when you're adding something on at the end and you're getting to select like 15, 20, 25% versus I've already rolled all of that into the cost and you're just paying for it no matter what. That is one of the arguments against tipping, though, is that tipping in an establishment leaves the final bill up to the discretion of the buyer, and they're basically getting to decide what that service was worth to them, versus me as a business owner saying, this is what my staff is worth to me, and I'm going to pay this regardless. So that factors into a little bit of the nuances of tipping versus not. But it can be challenging in a world where food costs continue to go up, living costs and the living wage continues to go up. There's a big gap between the North Carolina minimum wage and then the Guilford County, which is the county we're in, living wage. It's like a $10 an hour difference. So that's not great. But as we're trying to figure out how to pay competitively, how to make sure we're taking care of our staff, what does that look like? It's just the needle's kind of constantly moving on that. And then being in a restaurant business where things can be seasonal, where you're not guaranteed the same income every day or every month. You're trying to hit goals, but your staffing is staying pretty much the same. We have staff who's been here a long time, so wanting to be able to reward or to compensate them for the years that they've been here, while also recognizing that, like, if you're wanting to stay in the same position, like we have some staff that's like, I want to be a server till I retire. I want to be a dishwasher until I retire. I was like, well, then practically speaking, I can't really raise your pay every 6 months to a year indefinitely. And then so it starts to get a little bit fuzzy. So we get a question sometimes, and just to be totally transparent, not everyone on our staff makes a living wage. Sometimes people make that assumption, and then that gets into a big conversation with what all of those details are. We do have a large percentage of our staff that makes the living wage or above. Some of that is based on like full-time staff versus part-time staff. Some of that is based on responsibility and also capacity at work. We have, because of our business model, we have a pretty wide variety of both work needs and work capacity. We have staff who need and want different things, and so each role and the responsibilities and requirements for those roles gets pretty individualized, and so pay is pretty individualized as well. We do have sort of a median or baseline that we try to meet for all of our different positions, but there is variety within that as well, because we have staff who receive financial services and aid from the government, and so they have a wage cap We have staff who are limited in the number of hours they can work in a day because of physical strength or mental health capacity. We have, there's the list can go on, and I won't get into all of those details. But because of that, there's a variety of different pay scales and ranges that we have amongst our team. As a whole, we're trying to raise all of them. I would love to get to a point where the living wage, which right now is $17 an hour, is like the baseline for where people are coming in. We're close to that. We're not quite at it for everybody in every position yet, but we are getting close. But in order to do that, like to raise the bottom, you have to raise the top too. So we're trying to move everybody in a direction that's upward trending. But again, there the challenge becomes really we only have so much that we can grow financially with a restaurant that has 44 seats and the menu that we have. So that's where we start to try to become creative in terms of other revenue streams and income sources for our business so that we can continue to grow our team in terms of their pay and their benefits, taking care of them. But those are definitely like obstacles that as a business owner I face and work through trying to come up with those ideas and ways and continue to adapt and grow and change. So that takes a lot of mental work. It can add like financial strain in different ways or areas. But my goal at the end of the day is that my team feels compensated appropriately and well for the work that they're doing, that they're really well taken care of. When they're at work, we try to really pour in a lot of intangible ways as well. So I know that that's not something that you can take home on a paycheck, but just from my own personal experience in different jobs, being in an environment where people like you or they treat you well, where they respect you and they honor you, they take the time to get to know you and to encourage you, like all of that is not something that you can assign a dollar amount to, but that I think really does make a difference in terms of your work quality and your quality of life. That's also something that's really important to me. So I'm like, I think there are probably restaurants where people get paid more than people may get paid in mine. I think we also pay more than other restaurants do. Like we're probably somewhere in the middle. We're not at the top, but we're not at the bottom. Like I think we're somewhere probably in the middle. But there's something to be said too for like the longest, our servers are typically working like anywhere between a 3 and a 7 hour long shift. Our kitchen staff, like the longest someone is here usually is like 9 hours, and a lot of those days are shorter for our kitchen team. We're not open nights. We close on like major holidays. We close for a week or 10 days in August to give people, some paid time off. Really trying to like give people a life outside of the restaurant too, which in the restaurant world is pretty rare. It can be a pretty brutal business. So for the most part, like even our full-time employees, with the exception of myself and one other, maybe 2 teammates, like my full-time staff are working 4 days a week and then have 3 days off a week. So again, now I feel like I'm justifying the fact that we're non-tipping, and that was not the goal of this video, but just to provide a little bit more like context or clarity as to how it operates, because all of those things are truly interconnected. Potentially as a server, could you earn more with tips working somewhere else? Maybe, probably, depending on what restaurant that you went to. Do you know how much you're going to make? No. Does it vary based on the day? Yes. So those are some of the benefits, I think, to being in a non-tipping environment, is just the consistency. But then, you have to figure out food costs. what to charge things for, how to charge, what to charge for things, on the menu when it's appropriate to raise prices, how much are people willing to pay for things, what's it worth, you get into the psychology of it, how do you make numbers match up, what are other ways that we can grow our business and increase revenue, how do we take care of people and be fair, how do we be transparent with our guests to make sure that the information that they're receiving about us is accurate. Like, those are a lot of the things that keep me awake at night and keep me working during the day. So that's it. Overall, I wouldn't change our model. I also am not fully satisfied with it. That's also my personality. But basically to say, I stand behind what we're doing, but I also am committed to pushing us forward and to doing better. So that's the gist. If you have questions, comments, please be nice, but drop them below. And yeah, we will see you next week. I forget what we're switching to next. We're going to be changing up our content topics. Again, there's a chance I haven't planned it out, but if I have planned it out, I've forgotten it. That's it. We'll be back next week.